All right. So being part of the global technology team means navigating among complex challenges, building and scaling solutions, but all while working together with a shared purpose. You have to have the ability to be agile and flexible because the world around us is not at standstill. And the tools are evolving. There are new tools on the horizon that's empowering our engineers, our product managers, and our analysts. The jobs are evolving. But ultimately, it's the people at the core. Because the people is what makes the difference as we look across what is happening in the world. So, as Sam Walton said, we all work together, and that's our secret. So, joining me today is Pari Natarajan, the CEO of Zinnov, and I'm excited to explore some of the things that we want to talk about, Pari, and see how we lead, how we thrive in this changing world of ours, particularly at the intersection of humans and AI, who are not at odds with each other, but how do we accelerate, how do they help accelerate each other? So welcome. So here's my first question, let's dive in.
Okay.
So the technology teams are now deeply integrated across skills, across geographies, and cultures. How would you characterize a high-performing global technology team, and what is it that the teams need to do for the talent that needs to be doing today in the current world?
Yeah. Thanks, Vinod. Thanks for inviting me for Converge. It's great to be here. I'm pretty sure most of the people here are waiting to listen to Anil Kumble than us. So we will talk through this. And we have talked about AI the whole day. I'm going to talk about the human part of the question you asked. And we have a room full of technologists, right? And you look at what is required for a high-performance team. I would say first thing, what an AI cannot give us is empathy, right? And all of the engineers and technology folks should have, that's a key skill which is required. And how do I have high level of customer centricity? For example, the teams here are building for global markets, US market. And you can think of a scenario where several of the customers coming into a retail store maybe have food stamps plus a debit card, right? How do I now have a seamless way to provide that experience? Or you are an engineer in Stuttgart, working for Mercedes-Benz, and people in Germany buy for your excellent driving capability of the car, versus the largest market for Mercedes-Benz is China, where people buy that for the great infotainment systems and backseat experience. So if you're an engineer, you need to really understand the customer and the customer needs. And with digital twins, right now we can use AI to define all the different archetypes and personas of customers and interact with those customer personas and deeply understand that. So that's a number one skill for high-performance team. The second part is having deep domain capability, right? More AI is going to do the traditional coding part of the work. People have to abstract and build the skills which you will traditionally look for at a leadership role is required at an individual contributor. So domain capability, right? Take if you're healthcare, for example. You have worked in healthcare industry outside of retail. The whole getting the payment process is very, very complex compared to retail. There are like 12 different steps in revenue cycle management of a healthcare company. So if you're working in healthcare, you need to understand these processes really well, not just your software capabilities. So that's a second key skill. The third skill is foundational in terms of how you understand how the company makes money. Having basic business acumen. And a lot of time we don't train our engineers or ask them questions around how the company makes money, right? So a lot of times, let's say in a retail business, a grocery probably brings in revenue, but very low margin. Your financing gives you a lot more revenue. Same in an automotive industry. Selling a car, very low margin, but financing the car is high margin. So how how can engineers have a deeper understanding of how the company makes money. Right? So those three skills, customer centricity, empathy, domain capability, and having a very strong business acumen, those are the key skills which is required. How many of you listen to your company's investor call every quarter? Okay, that's a fair bit of people listen to it, right? So you ideally want the entire room to raise their hand.
Yeah. No, well said. So I think from my perspective at Walmart, we're people-led and tech-powered. We operate in about 19 countries. So we're trying to build platforms that are consistent, but also relevant to these different markets. So it's all about how do we make them relevant to the different. Think about in the automobile world, how they came up with this concept of a chassis, right? The common core chassis, and then it was customized for, the variants are customized for different markets. So we think about, as part of our global team, bringing the expertise from the different markets and bringing those requirements into what is the core and how do we customize it. But to your earlier point, I think the three big things that I think about when it comes to a high-performing global team, it is, are they collaborating? Do they have enough autonomy, but at the same time, accountability, right? And are they outcome-focused and outcome-driven? Because that matters when you have teams that are dispersed across multiple locations, across multiple countries. We need a framework for all of them to be aligned on and work together, right? And what I see that the talent seeks is in terms of this global organization is, am I learning new skills? Am I contributing and am I driving outcomes and creating an impact? And lastly, am I growing, right? These are important things as we think through, what makes a global, strong, high-performing team. And to your earlier point, do they understand that domain and they can contribute towards that? So let me ask you, Pari, we often talk about scale of the global teams, but not enough about the impact that they create. So when you're operating in a global construct, how do you see them actually being a force multiplier? How do they accelerate each other? And what unlocks value in that construct?
Yeah. So just to give you some data points on the global development in India, there are over 1,500 companies have their global capability centers in India, right? So fairly large, though close to 2 million people are employed in this area. That's the scale part. From an impact side, first is all about acceleration, right? How do I get time to market? Right? How do I increase or reduce my time to market? And that was a very interesting example. Let's take an example of like Ozempic, right? One of the top drugs invented in the last 20 years. Even though the innovation, the core research happened in Europe, the pharmacovigilance, biostatistics, the clinical research, a lot of that work was done from the India R&D team of Novo Nordisk. So that enabled the team to release this product, right? And I'll give another example of an interesting company. So we work with a company called Raksul. It's a Japanese unicorn, yeah? So and they're a small team here. The CEO came up with an interesting idea to create like an IT in the box for small business. And he had this vision, and then he got the initial prototype done from the India team, and they raised $150 million of investment based on the incubation done in India, right? So that was an example of a Japanese company using India to innovate for Japan and raising investment for that area. So that's one, is just product acceleration. The second is new capability, what get created by collaboration. During COVID time, a lot of the automotive companies are looking at building direct-to-consumer channel, right? And everybody goes through dealership, all the dealerships are shut, and one of the customers figured out, hey, where is this talent for e-commerce and payments? And the talent was in India. So they built that direct-to-consumer channel from the India Capability Center. The domain capability still resides with the headquarters, but the e-commerce and payments capability was here. So completely building new capability to augment your global capability. So that's the second kind of innovation. Third, especially with the agents coming in, what we see is there are teams co-located, right? You have your business operations team, your technology team, your corporate function team, all of them co-located. So to drive new agents for automating your BPO process, it's much easier for co-located team to collaborate. So they're not globally distributed, but they're co-located, and that brings in significant benefit. So you see significant amount of innovation in that area. And the fourth is market-specific innovation. If you take Samsung as an example, right? The Samsung AI teams working on vernacular AI is completely done out of India, right? Yeah, Canada and English, we speak both languages together. So how do I now understand this, make sense out of it? That is done out of here. And also, if you're a Korean company, you're building for US market, the largest number of engineers who speak English is in India. So they're able to use that to leverage and build for global markets. So you have that market-specific innovation happens in India. So there are significant, scale is one dimension, but you see in terms of product acceleration, new capability, new innovation, and cross business unit innovation, a lot of this becomes possible because you have global teams.
Absolutely. I think for us in Walmart, the most powerful unlock has been our platform-first mindset. By building these multi-tenant platforms, we are creating a force multiplier. So we have inner-sourced ways of working, where teams across the US and Mexico and Chile and the India center here, we all work together. And it's helping us bring a lot of these new platform products to the market in a much accelerated way, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we had done these things in a very siloed manner. Just to give you a couple of examples, we have a common e-commerce platform today that is, that is in the US, in Canada, in Mexico, and we are able to bring, features like product reviews, for the user reviews for all of the products, at the same time that we launch in the US, they get launched in multiple countries. So it's really exciting to bring these experiences at the same time and launch across multiple markets. The same thing for the associate-facing platforms as well. So we're now able to do our warehouse management systems across multiple FCs and DCs across multiple countries. Our unified seller system for marketplace is allowing our sellers to list once, and sell many. And incidentally, very recently, we had an anecdote from one of the sellers in the UK who was telling that, hey, how cool is it that I'm now able to list once and then sell in Canada, in the US, in Mexico, and multiple places, and tripled his business, right? So these are great, case studies for us to actually helps us, motivates us to be doing more of this. And this is where I see how the global teams coming together, by working together with a shared purpose, we are able to demonstrate that we can bring all of these benefits to the market.
These are great examples. How many of you read this book called Culture Map by Erin Meyer? Okay, there are like two people. I think that should be a must-read for anybody who works in a global team. So Culture Map, what Erin Meyer has done is to define different ways that cultures are different from different countries. Right? I'll give one example, and you can read the book. There are high-context cultures and low-context cultures. The US is a low-context culture where it's very explicit in terms of what you want and how they communicate. You take Japan or France, it's a high-context culture. There is always a message behind the message what you're providing. So having understanding about how different cultures operate, and then you're able to tune your communication based on that, will allow you to build trust. Because the key we know is, if global teams have trust, it reduces friction, quite a bit of friction. Right? A lot of the issue is people don't have trust, and they're always second-guessing the other person. Yeah. If you're able to build that trust, or reduce the trust deficit, that allows in a lot of this innovation, what you talked about as well.
100%. So if I say I like you, I really mean I like you in the US, but not necessarily so in other places, what you're saying.
Exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Last question. So AI is rapidly changing. This is an AI conference, so I got an AI question.
Sure.
So AI is rapidly changing how work gets done. And in many cases, what the work really means. So how are you seeing this technology, the technology roles evolving, whether it's the engineer role or a product manager role or even an analyst role? And how should people prepare differently, and how are organizations preparing for this?
Sure. So I'm going to give a non-AI, non-tech answer.
Okay.
The first issue we have right now with our talent is people are too busy. They don't have time, you're so busy with Jira tickets and getting the delivery out and, all constantly busy. People are not able to take time out to figure out what is happening in the AI. AI is moving so fast. Let's say you have a deterministic model which you have built 3 years ago for price prediction or optimization. Now the transformer models are able to do it much better, right? But if you have not kept in touch with what is happening on that side, you will miss out a huge opportunity to optimize. So finding that time your mind is still, Nandan mentioned about he doesn't use technology. So what are this time in a week where you are able to get your mind focused on not doing your work, but learning about what is happening in AI? I think that's the number one thing. Find time, not be so busy, right? The second big area is to unlearn and relearn. And a lot of times our teams have an ego that, hey, I know this. I've done this for 10 years. Why do I need to learn something new? But you look at the best sports people.
Yeah.
Take Tiger Woods, right? Tiger Woods has changed his swing multiple times because the golf club technology continues to evolve. And like changing a swing is very, very hard. And Tiger Woods had done it multiple times. You take Federer, right? And the tennis racket technology improved. He has changed how he plays tennis. Or Michael Phelps when Speedo released the new design for swimsuit.
I heard Coco Gauff is changing her serve all over again. She didn't have to, but she's trying to relearn.
Exactly. So your best talent is continue to unlearn and relearn.
Right.
So that is very, very critical skill. Not having an ego, being humble, and unlearning. So that's the second part. Third is the fundamental skill of communication. Right? This Sean Grew, I don't know how many of you listened to his YouTube keynote he's from OpenAI. He talks about how coding adds only 15% of value to what you're doing, and the primary job of a technology professional is communication. Right? As AI gets better and better, and code is going to get automated, your specification has to be a lot more clear. Your specification has to have an intent, and you have to communicate the values of what you're building. Right? So how do you effectively communicate on what the intent is and what the value and purpose of what you're building is even more important compared to having a coding skill, which is going to get automated. So these are the things. Find time, don't be busy, unlearn and relearn, and third is communication.
Well said. So in Walmart, we often say AI is evolving jobs. So what we are seeing in our facilities is that where we had associates doing a lot of mundane work, now they're able to move up and take up things around automation, which is really taking some of the repetitive work away, and the jobs are becoming more fulfilling. We had recently had this agent, it's called Odin, which allows all of our analysts in the workforce in some of our countries. Now they're not having to do 70% of the work that they typically did in just, again, routine, mundane work, right? So they're doing more strategy work now. We also recently launched a product called Trend to Product, which allows our sourcing merchants to be looking at things, the trends in the market, convert them into certain mood boards and create manufacturing specs, which allows them to really scrunch up the work which was taking 40 weeks to less than 40 weeks to 8 weeks. So this is fantastic time saving. It's taking the routine and the mundane away. So AI is really helping evolve the jobs in many ways, which is beneficial to our associates across, whether it's home office or in the field and so on. But just bringing it back to just the world of technology, I think our engineers were writing gobs and gobs of deterministic code, right? Our product managers were focused on creating features and features. We all have to think differently now. The engineers would now need to be thinking about how do I design, how do I fine-tune an agent, how do I integrate that agent in the ecosystem, Maybe the product manager is thinking about how do I create the human plus AI-related change management. The analysts are thinking about, instead of building, creating a lot of reports, how do they use some descriptive and prescriptive insights? So everybody has to rethink, I would say, that what their core job was, and how they can bring AI as a key partner. And so in the end, it's not human versus the AI, it's human plus the AI. It's not either or, it's the and. So I feel like bringing the technical fluency, but really having that empathy and the judgment and working together is what's going to make the difference.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's human plus AI. And AI is just a tool, and a tool which is a lot more evolved than what we had. And it's just going to make our engineers a lot better. And then AI is going to make global development much easier, right? Before, everybody has to be on a call in the night. Right now, you could record it. You could engage with the transcript and have a conversation with the transcript, so you know what happened in that meeting, even though you were not in the meeting. So AI is making global development much easier, to transition work from one location to another, understand other people's work, all of that much easier. So it's, in some level, AI is making it, each one is equal distance for anybody else, right? You don't have to be in a Bentonville, you don't have to be in Silicon Valley or in Bangalore. You could be anywhere, but have the same level of insight to deliver to the customer. I think that's a huge equalizer for engineers, especially engineers who are in India.
I think so too. I think in closing, I would say, to have a great global transformational team, you have to think global first, have a platform mindset, and just be curious and be adaptable to what's happening around you. And then with AI, I think everything is evolving. Again, your judgment and curiosity should be what you should wear every day, and be open to learning new things. It'll work its way. Again, thank you for the time. Appreciate Pari, you joining me today on the stage, and thank you again.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you.